Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to Red Hot Talk once again. This is episode 122. And we have a much cooler day today compared to last week. How's the weather like there, Rod, at your end?
It's fine. It's quite windy, actually, and it's probably about 22 degrees, something like that. I can tell you exactly.
Very similar to us then. So it's not as bad as last week. I still have the fan blowing at me, though, and just because it can get quite stuffy here if I close the door and things like that. So so bear with me if you do hear some wind noise coming through the mic, but hopefully it's not too bad today. Before I start anything, just to let you guys know that, that there will be no Red Hot Talk next week because I will be away on a cruise ship somewhere, enjoying the sun, if there is sun, and I will be looking over, hopefully catching the solar eclipse. So I'm still contemplating what kind of lenses that I should be taking with me, and I think I do need a fairly long lens, so I may be taking the 50 to 200 f2.8 Pro from OM System with a 2x converter, so that will give me quite close to the sun. I do have a fairly strong 100 stop ND filter if I do need to use that, so I can use that to
100 stop.
100 stop, yes. They call it the solar filter, so it's a very strong ND filter.
Make sure you don't look at the sun, Jimmy. Just make sure you don't do that.
No, I'll put that filter on and look through the viewfinder.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the plan, and so that means that next week there will be no Red Hot Talk, but they'll be back the week after. So this week we are going to have a little fun chat about a couple of news that broke out fairly recently. It's not just about Nikon, but the other news is kind of related to Nikon in some way as well, which we're going to talk about it. But on top of that, we are going to showcase some photos from Rod. Remember last week, Rod bought a brand new, well, not brand new, bought the new camera, the Nikon DF, the retro-looking DSLR. How old was it? Is it like 15 years old? Something like that?
13. Launched
13
years ago.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous camera. So he's going to show us some pictures because we demanded some pictures from last week. So yeah, he's got some for us.
don't get too worked up because I didn't have time to go very far. But I just took some shots to get the feel of it, get a sense of what the images look like. I also used it with the only with the Nikon 50mm 1.8. So it was quite it's quite a low tech lens, but it's got an interesting look. So the whole experience is very interesting.
That's good. Well, you can talk about the experience in just a moment, but I'll also show you some images from me because I recently got the Leica grip for the iPhone. What it does, it comes with a Leica Lux app. It's a paid app, it's a subscription service, but I got a special deal from Leica because they were promoting it last month. If I get the grip, I get a lifetime access to the apps, which is actually quite good because the app itself costs £70 a year to use it. So in a sense, if I use the app long enough, I should pay itself back. And alternative, I can just simply sell the grip and get some money recouped and into the cost, and I can get the app basically lifetime access for just kind of like a 2-year cost initially. So that's not too bad. So I'm going to show you some of that because I'm quite impressed with the images that capture from the app. Rod has used it before, I think. I think the result is very convincing. You can still tell it's kind of fake-ish and very iPhone-ish, but compared to, let's say, if you capture something from directly from an iPhone without any editing, or even if you use some editing software on the iPhone and edit them, the Leica app does a really good job with the filters that they use, and the result is quite convincing. So it's actually not too bad an app to use. If you just want some quick results from your phone, this is actually pretty good, but I'm going to talk about it later on. So let's start off today's discussion about Nikon versus Viltrox. Remember, many months ago we talked about this, and it was quite a interesting discussion because many of you joined in the discussions and talk about this whole Viltrox versus Nikon case. Many of you also were a little bit worried about the future of Viltrox lenses if something does happen between Viltrox and Nikon. But at current status is that Nikon did lose the case in China. It's already been confirmed by multiple sources. In fact, I actually seen the court case paper on the web in Chinese, but you can actually go Google translate it into English to see exactly what's going on. So that is very interesting because I think, right, Rob, this could potentially set a precedent to like all kinds of things. And so just briefly now Rod, you read the notes as well. So what is this court case about? Which is actually very different to what we originally thought, right?
So we thought originally that Nikon was going after Viltrox because Viltrox had done something with the lens and camera communications it wasn't supposed to do, and was using camera features that Nikon had thought might have been ring-fenced. That's what I thought. That seemed the most likely thing. In fact, what it's all about is that Nikon has a patent for the physical design of the lens mount, the number of bayonet lugs, their position, the angles between them, the position of the electrical contacts. It's that basic. And that was patented back in 2021. And this latest case has thrown out that patent because the argument is any engineer could have thought of those solutions, and that Nikon didn't add anything sufficiently new or inventive to make it a viable patent. So there seems to be some. Nikon was granted the patent in 2021. It's been thrown out in 2026. Don't know what's happened in between, but it's as simple as that: the physical design of the lens mount.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting if you think about it, because what in layman's term is basically talking about a method or mechanism to mount the lens securely to the camera body, including the electrical contact between the lens and the camera body. Yeah. That is basically it. And I can see both sides' argument. And obviously, Z-mount has a very specific dimensions where the lock is, and also the actual diameters of the mounts, and all sorts of stuff. That is basically very specific to Nikon Z cameras. But at the same time, the whole mechanism, the bayonet mechanism, it's been around for many, many, many years, as we all know about it. The very first being the M mount, because back in them days, most of the mount mechanism is through a simple screw. You know, you all remember the L39 mounts, the M42 mounts. All of these were just basically screw on lens. It's only until Leica developed this M bayonet mounts that you can actually properly lock the lens in a very specific position and securely. That becomes a thing, and subsequently, of course, we're starting to see a lot more similar sort of thing. As soon as the Leica bayonet mount patent was expired, you're starting to see Canon, Nikon having their own mount came out. You know, we see all sorts of iterations of F mount and the FL mounts, the D mount, whatever. You know, you name it, they're all there. So the mechanism's always been there. There's nothing new. I think that's the argument from the Chinese point of view. You know, this is not a new thing in terms of the whole design, right?
It's not. They're saying that just using a bayonet mount to mount a lens is not new. You can't patent that. I think Nikon thought it could patent the exact arrangement of the lugs and the angle between them. I don't think the Chinese Patent Office thinks that's valid, because that's just an engineering decision, and so on and so forth. I just want to address something the great Vanzini has said. We were talking about this before we started, actually.
Yep.
This is a decision in a Chinese court. You can sue for patent infringement in other countries. The only thing is, I would think that because this product is manufactured in China, that is maybe the only territory where you can bring out a patent action. But it needs somebody who knows more about international patent law than me to answer that one. But I don't know. We'll find out, won't we? But it could be that you have to sue. It could be that we have to sue it could be that you have to sue in the country of origin. And then the great Vanzini's anticipated another of the things we were talking about before. Does that mean Viltrox will start making Canon RF lenses? Just imagine the sky would fall in.
Well, yeah, I think that's the whole point about today's discussion
Yeah,
is it isn't just really specific to Viltrox, because we are really using Viltrox as the kind of a discussions here, but it
yeah,
reflects the whole third-party lens making in general. We are not just talking about them. We talk about like Sigma, Tamron, Seven
yeah,
Artists and TT Artists and all kinds of people who making lenses. Basically, do they really
yeah.
then have the right to make lenses for basically anything, really? If you just talk about that.
I think it does cast the whole idea of camera patents in some doubt if the patent itself can be challenged and reversed later on. It would be interesting to know if Canon's done anything different with the RF mount than Nikon did with the Z mount. Because if it
Yeah.
hasn't, then the same arguments could apply. That would be very exciting.
Yeah. But it does seem though. I mean, I know Nikon. I mean, Canon has been like refusing third-party making RF lenses,
Yeah,
but I think it's
yeah,
more specific to autofocus lenses, but not menu focus lenses. But I'm still seeing RF menu focus lenses popping up here and there.
yeah. But it's the same principle that the
Yes.
Canon is restricting third-party lens manufacturer on the basis of ownership of a
Yep.
design. So
Yeah.
maybe everyone will be looking at the Nikon verdict. But I think Nikon might appeal. This could go on and on, couldn't it?
It could. It could be
Yeah.
another a straight up hummus kind of situation there. Firing missiles from both ends like forever. Just never know
I,
solution.
it could drag on and on and on until somebody does the sensible thing and says, "Look, let's have a licensing deal where you give us a bit of money for an official license to do this, and everyone's
Yep.
happy." And I think that would be the sensible outcome.
Yeah, and I actually think, I know we talked about this, and there are also some concerns from photographers like myself. I mean, I also use Viltrox lenses. In fact, a lot of third-party lenses. Is that we shouldn't have to worry too much about it as a consumer, because at some point we are kind of protected, because otherwise this court case can get very, very complicated, and there will be some court order have to enforce that people who already pay for these products, and they need some sort of protections so to be able to continue use their current products that they legally pay for, and that obviously there's some sort of arguments has to be done there. Just a little bit like iPhone. Remember that there's iPhone and Samsung. There were some court cases before, and when there's some settlements or ruling, it's only affecting certain year and certain models, but not basically a generic block for every single iPhone. It's going to be very, very specific. So what would happen is that means that if you already have some Viltrox lenses that you bought before a certain date, they may not actually apply. So that means that we can still continue to be able to use it. It will only be from the ruling date point or something that they may have to backdate a little bit, whatever. But it's not going to be across the board or for every single product. That's my understanding. However, I do agree what Rod said. I think that at some point there will be some sort of settlement, some sort of licensing agreement going on there. That means that that there is going to be all okay, and we may have to pay a little bit extra, a little bit of premium for future Viltrox products just to cover the licensing fee. But hey ho, this has always been the case anyway.
It's not the first time Nikon has fallen out with a lens maker. I think they had a bit of a set to with Sigma years ago.
They did, yeah, with the
did
VR technology.
So I think in fairness to Nikon, it always looks like it's Nikon bringing these actions, but I think Nikon is a little more open with its lens mount than some.
Yeah.
But with that comes the need now and again to defend it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we keep seeing Nikon in the news with this. But I hope they get it all sorted out.
I think it will. I mean, judging
Yeah.
by the size of Viltrox and the access to the domestic market, which currently possibly the biggest consumer markets worldwide. If you're thinking about in terms of buying power, local Chinese are buying Viltrox lenses left, right, and center, and they are buying a lot. So in terms of market shares and the potential market value, you really can't ignore that. So. As much as Viltrox wants to do something, they still have to look at that from that point of view. And also, at the same time, we talked about that, Rod, earlier, just before the stream started, is that if something does happen and something fall out between these two companies, and Nikon somehow block Viltrox lenses, that could potentially mean that people are, existing Nikon users may get so upset they move away just because they don't have access to third-party lenses. Currently, you don't really find many third-party Z-mount lenses. Sigma is already not doing much, and you only see maybe Tamron a little bit.
Tamron's not doing
really
all its lenses for Z-mount, no.
Yeah, so apart from that, it's really just Viltrox, and that has more of an extensive catalog. So they're really closing the door for third party, a bit like Canon, basically, if you do that.
I don't think Nikon is closing the door. I think the Nikon door was always only half open, and that hasn't changed. So they're not closing the door. They're just saying, look, it's fine, but do it properly. Don't go behind our backs and nick stuff. That's I think that's basically what Nikon is saying. We'll agree to most stuff, but come on, do it properly.
Yeah.
That is the feeling I get from this.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm all up for the everything official. They can somehow sign an agreement, get a proper support. It's better for everyone eventually. That will mean that Viltrox will get full support from Nikon, and they will be able to get pre-production firmware from the upcoming cameras, so they make sure the product will be working with the new cameras when it comes out. Things like that, rather than retrospectively, until users say, "Oh, I can't use my lens," and then they have to do a patch fix fairly quickly to do that. So it's a lot of things there. So let's see what happens. We can't say much at this moment in time, but all we know is that Nikon has lost the court case at this moment in time. But this is not the only bad news, though, isn't it, Rod? The other news is since we talked about Tamron and Sony, you've probably seen the news as well. Sony.
Well, whether you call it bad,
well, it definitely has some impact to it. We just don't know yet. Sony is attempting or trying to buy Tamron out.
right.
The reason why we said that that may have some impact to Nikon is because Tamron is making Nikon lenses, and also they also making as a branded as Tamron lenses for Nikon mount. So that is interesting. So what if Sony does take over as Tamron? Would they block Nikon lenses altogether because they want to have the manufacturing capabilities and capacity for themselves, making cheaper Sony lenses, or just to make it Sony exclusive or any other things but Nikon?
Well, this is only my guess, and I'm as likely to be as wrong as anybody else. I think if Sony did buy Tamron, it would be to buy the business as it is currently operating. Because that's where the profit and the revenue lies. So I can imagine sometime in the future, Sony might squeeze other mounts so that the Tamron lenses all end up in Sony E-mount only. That could happen. But in a funny kind of way, that has already happened. So I think this relationship might be a little longer than we think it is, because I use Sony E and I use Tamron lenses. There are Tamron lenses you can get for Sony E-mount that aren't available for Nikon Z. So in a way, it's kind of already happened. But I've got a slightly interesting technical aside here.
Okay.
If you've got a couple of minutes.
I
was talking to a Nikon rep at a roadshow very recently, saying, "Oh, that Z5 II is good value at the moment, and the Z6 III." I said, but I'm kind of tied to my my Sony system, because there are E-mount lenses I can get for that, Tamron lenses, that aren't available for Nikon Z. So he said, get a Megadap adapter. They'll go straight on. So I thought, but there's two things with that. Because these adapters are fully wired. Everything still works. Will Nikon go after Megadap when it's finished with Viltrox? That's one question.
Exactly.
My other question is, this is a more technical one.
All
modern mirrorless lenses need digital correction.
Yes.
With a profile either baked into the image file or recognized by your software and applied by your software. Now, if you use a Tamron lens on a Sony body that it was designed for, the lens profile will be embedded as a matter of course.
Yep.
If you stick it on a Nikon camera with a Megadap adapter, I don't think the lens profile correction will be embedded in the Nikon RAW file. I think you could be in trouble. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there has tried it.
Right. I can answer that because I do have the adapter, and
Okay.
and believe me or not, when I first got the Nikon ZF, I was looking for a very cheap 51.8, and the cheapest 51.8 I could get was the Sony E-mount, the 51.8, because it sells for basically £100, really cheap, really dirt cheap. So I thought I'd give it a go, and the reason I wanted to give it a go is because first of all, it's cheap, like I mentioned already. Is that I wanted to test out the Mega adapter. So I ordered the adapter. So I mount the 51.8 onto my Nikon ZF. It worked flawlessly. It really worked flawlessly, including CAF. It's really tracking very fast. Everything worked. But things cannot be said for third-party E-mount lenses, because I tried to mount in fact, where was my lens here? It was somewhere. It was a 24mm 7 Artisan 1.8 AF for E-mount. So I just tried to use the same adapter, mounted on my Nikon ZF. That didn't work at all, and it worked for single AF, but it was hunting quite a bit, so it didn't work too well for it. I did address to 7 Artisan, and also Megadap, and obviously they blame each other. There must be some firmware they did do.
Of course.
So that's the danger of using adapters, because they always claim it's the other side's fault, we make sure that the adapter works with the Nikon cameras or any Nikon cameras, so it's down to the lens makers to make it work. And then the lens maker will say, oh, well, you're adapting to another body. Of course, you have to make sure the adapter works so the camera supports it. So it's always that argument being thrown back and forth, and you're never going to get a solution to it.
So I don't think embedded lens corrections will work.
No, actually, I was going to answer that. Yes. No, the in-body profile will not work, obviously, because the body doesn't contain any information about the correction. But if you import the RAW file, if you shoot RAW, that is, into Lightroom, I'm not sure about any other software. Lightroom would actually look up for two informations there. First of all, is the body. Second is the lens. It will actually apply the lens correction. So in that case, it doesn't matter what lens adapted to what camera, it will still work in Lightroom, providing there is a profile for that lens.
So I think then there are two possible exceptions. One of them is Capture One. Because Capture One is the same as Lightroom, but Capture One, they do not create profiles for a lot of basic consumer lenses. So I've got the Tamron 17 to 50 f4. And I haven't checked yet, but I don't think Capture One will make a profile for that. So in Capture One, I'd be stuck. And if using DxO Photolab works with camera and lens combinations. I'd be surprised if DxO had worked out a Nikon Z plus Tamron E-mount lens combo, a profile for that. I think Lightroom you'll be okay. I think other software you could run into problems. But and that's just a slight digression. But I think the whole business of lens adapters, you have to start wondering about that and how that's going to play out.
Yes, absolutely. But it's interesting that the Nikon rep actually told you to get the adapter for lenses.
I think that's because he wanted to sell me a camera. And he nearly did. The Z52 and the Z63 were cheap that day, because they're cheap at the moment anyway. And there was I think Nikon was doing a further 5% discount. So I think Z52 was going to be about £1,500. So let's call it $1,700, and the Z63 wasn't much more. But in the end, I got cold feet, luckily, and I didn't do it. But it's interesting. I would rather have Nikon than Sony. But at the same time, there are lenses I can get for Sony I can't get for Nikon. So can't win,
and,
can't win.
And to be quite frank, I think that situation, like you kind of already mentioned, is not just happening for Tamron, but also Sigma. So Sigma currently only focusing mainly on E mount and L mount, and you actually find a lot of the new releases in the past 18 months are basically lack of L mount, so Z mount support. So it's basically just purely L mount and also E, and that's about it. So it seems like, whether you like it or not, Viltrox is kind of the only one dare enough to make Z mount lenses.
Well,
and
Sigma is only doing a handful of Z mount lenses, and they're all Z mount versions of old APS-C lenses. I don't see any Sigma full frame Z mount lenses.
No, because all the latest one, like the was it the 180 f2.8 or f2, the other big massive Bs there, the
all
135,
E mount and L mount.
Yeah, they're all L mounts and E mount, and so there's no Z mount support there, which is a little bit disappointing. That's what I'm saying. Like as a now kind, a Nikon user myself, and I mean, I like more variety, and not that I don't like Nikon lenses, I do. However, if I want the top end stuff, and they are fairly dear. If you wanted the 35-1.2, for instance, the Viltrox version is £1,000 in the UK, but the Nikon version is like 2.8, £2,800, something like that. It's very dear, and but even if they're properly licensed, I wouldn't mind paying £200 more, but I still probably would go for Viltrox just because it's significantly lower in price, unless you can make your return on investment, or you're really serious about that lens and you can afford it. Of course, that's nothing to stop you from buying it, but for most consumers, most just average photographer who do it for fun and hobby, fogging out a nice body for $3-4 and then you try and get 2 or 3 more lenses that are really nice, you are talking about a very significant investment. And if you're a die-hard Nikon fan, that's not a problem. You're going to keep your gear for a very long time. But if you would like to try out some other system and hopping from system to system over time, which happens a lot in modern days, that could be
seems happening a lot to me.
Because by the time you sell this stuff, you're going to lose half of it straight away. It's not something that you can recoup in cost, and that's the danger always when you switch systems.
It is, and I would dearly love to be in a Nikon Z full frame system, but it's an expensive place to be.
It is.
The lenses.
Yes, I mean they are nice. They are nice, though. I have to say they are nice.
Yeah. But I'm just glancing very quickly now, and if I was to do it, there aren't many lenses I'd feel comfortable shelling out all that money for. I don't mind with Sony E because I think Tamron lenses are very good and are a lot cheaper than the Sony ones. So that makes kind of financial sense to me. But if I was to jump ship and go to Nikon, I wouldn't be able to get that same choice of lenses that I like at the same price. So I think I don't know why you can't get Z-mount versions of these Sony E-mount Tamron lenses, but you can't. If you could, I might feel differently. But as it is, they don't exist.
No, unfortunately. I mean, so I mean, in my eyes, third-party lenses exist for a reason. They provide a more affordable alternative to the native lenses, so to speak. It happens since day one. And of photography, even actually, if you think about the beginning of photography, there was no native lenses, so to speak. People who make camera box, and then there are lens makers who make optics only, and they're just adapting to it. As in when a photographer likes, there's no such a thing as we go one brand and one brand only. Back in the early days, there's no one brand, right? You got a guy making a wooden box. It's a carpenter basically, and you got people who are making these lenses.
It all started with bayonet mounts, didn't it?
I
mean, back when everything used the M42 mount, nobody thought anything about it. I mean, obviously the M42 screw mount was hopelessly limiting as far as moving forward is concerned. Then Pentax K was used very widely, but then you've got Canon FD. That's the only one I can think of right now. Who else would there have been? Nikon F mount. As soon as we had bayonet mounts, that's when everything started to go lock down into particular channels. So it's I guess if you want the advantages of bayonet lenses, you have to put up the disadvantages of all the proprietary stuff that goes with them. It's a shame. I think presumably that's what the L mount was trying to fix.
Yeah, well, same as Michael 430, right? You know, when they first developed the platform, you know, the reason they wanted to make it like cross-compatible, although not 100%, we all later found out. But you know, at least you do have that opportunity to exchange lenses and different brand and mount and things like that. So it all worked fairly well, and you know, so I see the benefit of having an alliance like the Michael 430 and also the L mount. So you can use different brand, different mounts. So you can see some options that probably don't exist in the current brand that you're supporting. For instance, you know, Panasonic makes some great lenses, but they also don't make some of the lenses that maybe Leica or Sigma offer. Sigma actually by far now have the biggest L mount catalog by far, simply because they converted a lot of the older lenses into L mount, so they're able to do that. But at least you've got options, right? This is the thing.
We don't talk about the L mount very much, but you've got to give it credit for that. It is a very open system. It's a shame that the cameras are not necessarily the world's most exciting. Can I say that? But the lens choice is extremely good.
Yeah.
But just getting back to Nikon for a moment before we move on to other stuff. I mean, do you think, Jimmy, we can say that the Nikon 28 to 75 f2.8, their affordable kit lens, if you like, is the Tamron 28 to 75 2.8?
Oh. I don't know, but very likely, because I know the which one that I have. I have the 70 to 152.8, the Nikon one. Right. And it's cheap, you know. It's basically the same as the Tamron 70 to 152.8. You know, well, like, no one else makes a 70 to 150. So let's put it that way.
So even if they're not the same,
you
can buy the Tamron 28 to 75 f2.8 in E-mount for $800.
Yep.
If you've got a Nikon and you want a 28 to 75 2.8, then it's about $900.
Yeah.
So there is a considerable difference. Hang on, it's been more than 900. I'll check. There is a considerable difference in price between two very similar lenses. Now, wouldn't we love it if we could buy the Tamron in Z-mount, because then we'd save a whole heap of money, but we can't. We can't.
No. Well, that's the thing, right? You know, like
sorry, Jimmy, $200 more. Yeah, $200 more for the Nikon.
But that's been the case for Nikon, though, isn't it? Nikon, we know that Nikon low-end lenses are, you know, I would say most of them are made by third party, and Tamron in particular. And between the Tamron version and the Nikon version, the price there is a price difference there, and I think a lot to do with the Nikon's own warranty, Nikon's badge. Prestige price, premium that you have to pay for, that basically it. But if you don't mind that, you know, you can just get the Tamron branded lens for a little bit cheaper, but essentially they are the same lens.
So I think this is a problem for Nikon, and even more so for Canon.
Yep.
Other systems, you can buy good lenses for less money.
Yes.
That's the bottom line, really.
Well, if you think about Sigma in particular as a third-party maker, Sigma in recent years, we all know that Sigma has gone from pretty average optically to pretty stunning.
Very good, yes.
It's a huge transformation in the last 10 years.
Definitely.
And, I remember my very first Sigma lens. It was a 50 millimeters 1.4 EF mount. It was for DSLR or SLR. At the time, just because I was a cheap student, and then I couldn't afford the official Canon 50 millimeters 1.4 USM. I think it was retail at the time. It was like 300 something pound. I'm just converting because I was in Hong Kong then. But the Sigma was 30% or 35% cheaper. So it's quite a bit cheaper, and I can get a 51.4. Optically, you know, I have to say that, you know, it wasn't that good, but you get a 51.4, and it's just allowed me to trying it out, you know, do things. But that's the whole point, right? A lot of the third-party lenses is really for people to experience that kind of optics, you know.
You don't know if you need them until you own them.
Yes.
You can't tell in advance how it's going to work for you. You have to buy them.
That really made me think about the 51.4. So eventually, I actually, when I started making money, and I upgraded to the 51.2L. So that's a much more expensive lens, just because I could afford then. And but that's the whole. I think that's another thing about third-party lenses, is the entry-level point, and also the gateway towards a photography. Okay, people always talk about entry-level cameras, but we rarely talk about entry-level lenses, just because obviously many of us are enthusiasts and very serious photographers by now, But for beginners who have no idea about photography, that when they look at these lenses we just talked about, God, a lens costs about 3,000. Jesus, that's a lot of money.
Well, hats off to Sony, because Sony's just launched its new 100-400 f5.628. So it's a fairly slow lens, fairly cheap, but it's like about £850. Yep. It's actually affordable. Sony makes two other 100-400s. One of them is like 2.8, and the other one is about 4.6. So Sony has actually made a lens that regular people can buy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you're just starting out,
I
think, I could be quite into wildlife and nature and sports photography, but I don't know. So 800 or 850 is a lot, but you can try it, and you haven't lost too much if it's not for you.
Absolutely.
And that is the point of less expensive lenses.
Yeah, and also seeing people always have an argument about, why don't you just rent the lens for a few days? But to be quite frank, few days doesn't quite do it, unless you already know what you want to capture, what you want to do with it. Yes.
You have to live with it. Very often you think this lens is wonderful, but it's like a honeymoon period. Then after 2 or 3 days, you put it in your bag or a drawer, and it doesn't come out again for 5 years. So you have to have these things for a little while to get a sense of how useful they're going to be. With wildlife photography and sports, I'm quite rubbish at it. I'm not good with long focal lengths, telephotos, following action, and the like. I'd rather find that out for $850 than $2,500.
Yeah.
So you can always sell it again, but it's less of a hit. So cheaper lenses are important.
Yeah, I think that is definitely correct. Like, when it comes to prices, you think about the depreciation of lenses when you come to selling it. Percentage-wise, they're probably about the same. So imagine invested more, and that means the potential loss in terms of money, the value is significantly more. It's just because you pay significantly more for the high-end lenses than the entry-level lenses. So it's better to try with a cheap lens first. And if you do like the focal length, you like that, and you do think that, I do need a faster aperture, just to be able to freeze the moment using low ISO, increase image quality, whatnot, and anything, right? And then you save up for the bigger lens or more expensive high grade lenses. This has always been the case, and I think this is also the pattern, right? At the moment, with a lot of people, a photographer, especially, I would say, can I say that? Uninitiated. And so they jump right ahead and start splashing out and get the most expensive they could afford. And in most cases, I would say that's the correct way to do it. Get the best lens you can afford. But at the same time, you may not know whether that lens is suitable for you, or whether you do like that kind of focal length. And because a lot of these, in terms of pricing wise, how many can you afford, right? You can only get 1 or 2 at a time. You're not going to get the whole set all at one go.
And also, it takes you a while to figure out what your own standards of quality are, because very often I've used and reviewed cheaper lenses, and I've thought, this is good enough. It doesn't have to be better. You can buy a cheaper lens and figure, I don't need a better one. This is already as good as I need it to be. So it doesn't make sense to go straight in with the expensive stuff. I have spoken to people who say, I only ever buy the best. And you think, how do you know you need the best? What do you call the best?
And look, coming from my perspective, right? I'm a working photographer. I make money from photography. Yes, from Michael Four Thirds side, I do use original OM and Panasonic lenses.
Yeah.
And with especially with OM, and just because I'm affiliate with them and I'm the ambassador, so I do have a little bit of perks when it comes to purchasing lenses. But for Nikon that I'm using right now, for Fujifilm that I'm using right now, I use third-party lenses. In terms of performance, okay, yeah, they may not be like toe-to-toe with the high-end glass from Nikon or Fujifilm, but they're 80%, 90% there, and that's being truthful, about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But for my work, my clients can't really tell the difference. When I'm editing the photos, I do a little bit of sharpening here and there. It really cannot tell the difference. And majority of my clients, even if they print them, they would not be able to tell the difference. I think it's only when you're starting to pixel peep, it's really having a side-by-side comparison, then where you see the difference.
You don't really know what your clients are going to notice either. So with the DF, I've been using this Nikon 51.8, which is a pretty cheap lens. Yeah. And it vignettes quite a lot, and you would never call it particularly sharp, especially wide open. But it has a very particular look. And if you're somebody who's into a kind of analog look, it's amazing. It would be better. It would be better than a top flight 51.4. Made to today's standards, because it's got a look. So I think probably with client photography, you might be surprised at the look they like, which isn't necessarily technically the best look. But I think as well. I'm with you, Jimmy. For my OM stuff, I just get OM lenses. But the point with those is, even the pro OM lenses, you can afford.
Yes,
you can't.
That's true.
You can't do that in a full frame system so easy.
Yeah, look, like the 35-1.2 I just mentioned, you could get two pro lenses from the OM system. The 25 and the 17-1.2.
Yeah, that's the thing. The costs escalate so dramatically with full frame that it really needs the lower cost lenses, which generally means third-party lenses, for beginners to get any kind of toehold in a full frame system.
I think in some way, this is the generic problem that we have now with digital cameras, with decreasing sales, through the entire mirrorless market. The cost of every single thing has gone up just to compensate that. They're trying to maintain profit margins and the turnover of the company. And it's pricing a lot of photographers out. I'm all for affordability at the end of the day, because it's a hobby. A lot of people are used, photography is a hobby to them, and they may not necessarily ever going to make the money back for the money they invested. And so I actually think they should really make cheaper lenses, as a matter of fact, cheaper bodies as well. For everyone to enjoy this hobby, not pricing them out completely. That's what's happening right now, I think.
Yeah, I think bodies, I'm not so worried about. The cost of lenses, I do worry about. Because they just seem to accelerate quicker than the cameras themselves. I don't know what the opposite of erosion is. Accretion. Oof. No idea. But what's happening, I think, is that in order to make us keep buying stuff, manufacturers have to keep making it better. Which means it costs more to make and costs more to buy. So fewer people buy it. So that drives up the unit cost for production. It's like a spiral of doom, really. Everything's better than we ever wanted it to be, and we can't afford it anymore.
Yeah,
that's how it seems sometimes.
One criminal that I can think of is Canon, because
criminal steady.
they how many versions of their famous 70-200 2.8L there is in the last 20 years? Gosh, like 10 versions or something. how can they make so many different versions of the same lens, right?
But I would always think, good grief, the first one cost me enough, and now you're saying it wasn't good enough. You've had to do another. What the heck?
like every 2 years, every 2-3 years. Like, oh, I've got a new one. It's much better than the last one. Oh, what?
Yeah.
What? I just paid that
You
£2.5
told
grand.
me the last one was brilliant.
So that's not right? So that is horrible. But anyway, you know, that is what's happening right now. And so I do support third-party lens makers, and you know, you can call me cheapskate or not, you know, but I do obviously, you know, like I do support everybody, but I think third-party lenses does actually allow people to afford photography for once, at least, you know, and try out things that they may not necessarily like in long terms. But without trying it, you know, you just don't know. I know manufacturers now starting to do cheaper alternatives now. We all see across the board now, right? You know, Canon's making 40 f1.2 for relatively cheap price, and then Nikon do the same thing with the non-S series lenses, and Sony as well.
I would say that Canon has made some good affordable lenses. They're often a bit off the wall for most users, but I think the 24-105 f4 to 7.1 is a lot better than people think it is. They think it's a cheap kit lens. It's better than that. It's got a really good stabilization. There's a 15-30 f4 to 5.6, which is 6.1. That looks like it should be rubbish. It is not rubbish. It is extremely good. But then you haven't got a choice. You have to hope that the lenses you can afford are good. So Canon's got a whole bunch of primes, like the 16 f2.8, the what's the other one? 24 1.8, 35 1.8, 50 f2, 85 f2. I've owned all of those. What they've all got in common is they're very good lenses with crunchy autofocus. So Canon has just saved money in the worst place, and they're just not particularly nice lenses to use. So the thing is with Canon, there aren't any alternatives. You can't say, oh, I'll buy a Sigma instead, or I'll buy the Sigma 35 f2. That's nice. You can't have it. You can't say, I'll buy the Viltrox XYZ. You can't have it. If you want an affordable lens from Canon, it has to be a Canon lens, and they're not all brilliant. So that's annoying.
That is annoying. So, I just saw some comment, and because you asked the question earlier, oppositional erosion is deposition.
Yeah, I was hoping for something more dramatic, something along the lines of a galactic explosion or a supernova, something like that. But deposition, I must be prepared to accept that is the correct scientific term. Yeah.
And Chuck also has a comment there. I hate small equal cheap. Why can't small equal good and weather sealed?
Well, the thing is, design and miniaturization costs money. Don't imagine they don't, and you should be prepared to accept that. You know, if you buy something compact and miniaturized, why shouldn't it be a premium? Because it takes a bit of work to do that.
Well, that's also another thing where third-party manufacturers are taking the lead here, and because if you look at like the big players like Canon, Nikon, and Sony, their cheaper lenses tends to be non-weather sealed plastic constructions, just to keep the costs down while still carrying the badge, right? The third party, on the other hand, they give you everything because they want to have the unique selling points, right? You know, so the likes of, you know, one of my recent review, the SG Image 2518 for Michael Four Third, full metal, weather sealed, everything metal. Like I said, the lens hood, the lens cap, everything is metal for $120, right? You know, this is ridiculously priced. You know, if you think about it, because the 2518. From OM System, the Mark II obviously is more expensive because it's now full metal construction, weather seal. It's definitely a bit smaller than SG Image, but you're paying premium for that. But compared to the original plastic version, it's still cheaper than that version. So, like, you know, third party does give you that value when it comes to that. And Viltrox is on the same boat. Viltrox, you know, the latest full frame 26mm f2.8. It's almost like a pancake lens, weather seal, metal construction with aperture ring and everything like that, which you can't get that same lens in that size, in that spec, in any manufacturers. Not Sony, not Canon, not Nikon. So they are bringing something that no one else has. This is what a lot of the third parties tends to do, right? Sigma used to do that, right? Sigma used to do this quirky thing, when they bring out with a focal length that nobody else has, like 42 millimeters instead of like 40 or 50, 37 instead of 35 or 40. So they bring out this kind of weird thing going, and but yeah, that's always been the case.
I think the thing I would say with regard to what you just said there is that independent makers make lenses that the mainstream makers don't. I immediately thought of the Laowa Argus lenses.
Oh, the Argus lenses.
The f/0.95 lenses. Yes. That is a look. That is a look and a half.
They are. You know what? I'm still waiting for Laowa to make the Argus, the 17.95, because they had one for Michael Four Third. I tested it. It was brilliant. It was really brilliant. It's big though. That thing is big, and then that's the only downside I could say. But optically, that thing is, I would say as sharp as the Ohm System 17 1.2 Pro, but it's 8.95 aperture, so and even faster.
And if you shoot at f/0.95, there's no look like it really. But I noticed the Wex, for example, is selling the Argus 33 f/0.95, Jimmy, in Fujifilm X mount for 255.
255.
Half price.
Rod just want to make me spend more money, but I already have spent too much. So
well, you know how much we love the Fujifilm 50 f1.
Yep.
I think this has a very similar look. I mean, there's no autofocus, but it's got the look.
Yeah.
255, Jimmy. I haven't got an X-mount camera at the moment, otherwise I would. But
well, I mean, there is one lens that I want to get for the X-mount at this moment in time is the that legendary 50 f1. I still want to get that lens. And but
which one is that? Sorry.
The 50 Fujinon 51 f1.
I thought you owned it, but you used it, right?
I borrowed it. I borrowed it from Fuji.
Yeah.
And I like it. It's very slow though. The AF is very slow and it's very clunky. And but it's a 50 f1.
Slow, yeah.
It's a 50 f1, and the look, if you shoot it wide open, is something else.
And it's not a digital look either. It's very organic.
Analog look, very old school look. Yeah.
I don't know how you can describe that technically, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah. So it's a good lens. It's a very unique lens, and strangely, you don't see many in stock either. So like, I don't know whether they're still actually officially making it, or they just let the whatever stock they have currently before they discontinuing it. There's no word about discontinuation about the lens. I still remain as an active lens, but that's a lens I would like to get because, like I said, Rod probably know me best, right? Like I like getting lenses, lenses that are good and unique, but I guess most photographers do, right? They like that really special lens, and now I have the body to mount it on, so that means that I now should be able to get one and just and keep it, providing I keep the system alive. But the 51 f1 is really, really unique. It's a little bit like Nocticron, in the Leica world.
Yeah. I just want to briefly answer, since Angelo Flavorone has asked me directly, why do you think Canon and Nikon wants to limit third-party lenses? This is an old discussion going right back to DSLR days.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it is two things. I think it is extra revenue for the camera company because people who buy other people's lenses, they're not buying yours. So obviously you'd rather they bought your lenses. Secondly, I think it's a kind of way of protecting the reputation of the brand. Because if somebody buys a Nikon and puts a cheap lens on it and says these Nikons are rubbish, it's not Nikon's fault. So I think it's a bit of both. I think they'd much rather they don't want you just buying a camera. They want you to spend a bit more money with them for lenses too. So you can't blame them.
No, you can't. But at the same time, I could counter argue that, right? Like I said earlier already, if you get a cheap lens from a third party, to experience it. You know, at some point you really do want to get a better one, and by then you're probably looking at the native one, like kind of almost the case. And like I had been that kind of journey when I've got the Sigma, like I said, Sigma 51.4 for my Canon SLR back in the days. And about 3-4 years later, when I started working, making some money, I upgraded to the Canon 51.2. You know, I did get a better lens, but then I know the 50mm is the focal length that I wanted, so I get a better one.
But you're dealing with hard-headed corporate organisations here. You can't offer a theoretical possibility as a counter to an economic fact. You can't in a Nikon meeting. You wouldn't say, "Oh, do you know what? I think if we allow people to buy cheap lenses, they might buy one of ours one day," because they'll just say, "Leave the room. We wanted to buy our lenses. Go away," which makes sense.
Yeah, no, I can see that point either. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
It's quite funny. Ethan also says something here. Honestly, I've talked to people interested in photography, wanting a cheap setup. I tell them to get into photography with a decent lens would be $250 and a camera for $800. They panic.
Yeah.
The young gen is cheap.
They are. They'll spend over $1,000 on a phone, but they think that's too much for a camera. But just get used. Just get a used camera. But then the problem with buying used cameras, all the YouTube propaganda is for new stuff.
Yes.
There are some YouTubers talking about old stuff, but really you're swimming against the tide if you say buy an old camera.
It's really, really interesting, and Ethan's comment here, because especially when you mention about young generations, right? Like you said, they spend $1,000 on a phone. Then they spend another $4,000 on a new computer. They spend like loads of other things.
You might.
when you add them all up, you know, like they spend quite a lot of money, right?
I saw an TV ad. I think it's for a new folding Samsung. I don't know much about Android phones.
Oh, is that a fold? The new
with
one?
A plan.
Yeah.
It was £60 a month. I thought £35 a month was a lot for a handset and contracts. 60. Jeepers.
I think it's a norm these days. £60-70 a month.
Wow.
I mean, no wonder people can't save any money these days, just because then they say, all of these contract subscriptions.
Then they complain about their Adobe photography plan subscription, which is about a third of that cost.
Yep.
Weird.
Oh well.
Hey. Yeah.
Oh well.
Cheap cameras. Oh dear. Almost too cheap, really. Get an old 50D. 50D.
Oh, yeah.
Possibly you have to shoot RAW because Canon's JPEG processing at the time was awful. But this body was £100.
Is that it?
The lens is 15-25, which is handy. That was 150. So that's 250 altogether. But
you got it from MPB.
Yeah, and they're quite pricey. But the only thing is, give that to a beginner, and they'll say, "I can't even lit it up, let alone understand it." So I don't know what you do, to be honest.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think DSLR is actually very, very good value for money now, and
it's because they're unfashionable.
Yeah. But that's good. I mean, photography is all about photography. It's all about the same thing. And you may not have the latest AI tracking and, computational stuff, IBIS and all sorts. But if you're just purely thinking about taking photos, these things are bargain now. You can get a full-frame DSLR for like £200, £300.
Yeah, that's about it. That's about it, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get a couple of decent lenses all within £1,000 if you really not bother about, having a slightly chunky and clunkier DSLRs. But if you never ever handle one, I think you'll be surprised how solid they feel, compared to mirrorless. A lot of the DSLRs, they built like tanks, and
they also have, there's more space for the controls, and they tend to have more rounded corners, so they're quite smooth to grip and hold and move your hands over. They're quite nice to use in that respect.
And also they're much simpler to navigate. Unlike modern digital cameras, we have like 100 different pages of menus, and sub menus, and the DSLRs are way simpler, like
can be. I wouldn't say that about my D800 necessarily, but the lenses are more affordable too. So
yeah.
For my D800, I got the Nikon 24-120 f4, the latest version. Obviously, mine was used.
Yeah.
I think that was about 300.
Yeah.
They're on sale new for about 1100. Huge price difference.
Yeah.
I got 16-35 f4. I think that was about 250, which is just silly. But it's because they're out of fashion. If you try and do that with Fujifilm, good luck.
Yeah. I'm just looking at Vinlip is actually quite interesting here. Recently upgraded my kid's phone from 14 to 17 Pro Max, and my daughter was still wanting a camera. Then I pointed at her 1,000+ semi-pro grey camera on her new iPhone.
The cameras on the iPhone 17 are very good.
Yeah, speaking of which, I will show you some images in a minute, and taking from the 17 Pro Max. Actually, on that note, maybe we'll start seeing some of the images that you took from your DF.
So I just the irony was we just had 8 weeks of rain, and of heat wave, and I stepped out, and within 5 minutes it's raining. Yeah. Oh yes, that's a Tin Man in my back garden. It's one of the first shots I took. It reminded me that DSLRs don't have IBIS. My Nikon 50-1.8 does not have optical stabilization.
Yeah.
You forget how much IBIS mollycoddles you. So basically, my minimum shutter speed should be about a 1/2/5 because I'm rubbish at hand holding. None of this walking around with your own camera shooting at an eighth or a quarter. Forget that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I can get camera shake at a 1/2/5 with the DF.
Yeah, it's all because it's high resolution as well, so you can really see when you punch in.
It's more that I'm rubbish at hand holding cameras these days. So I think that's more it. So just make allowances for DSLRs not having IBIS. That's the first lesson.
But that is actually a point to make as well. I know. Yeah, all modern cameras now, virtually all of them will have IBIS. Not all of them actually. There's some of them, but we always talk about this. That there are techniques holding the cameras and lenses properly, and if you use one of these older DSLRs and immediately will teach you something about what is properly, how do you properly hold the camera to make it steady, and the techniques of leaning on something, the technique of how you actually put your photographer stance, for instance, how you position your legs and you tuck your elbow in together. All of these stuff are fundamentals to how to take better photos, but many newer generations simply forget that because they all have IBIS these days, and then you simply forgot about the importance of that. And don't forget, if you have the proper technique, you can even go further with the IBIS, because the IBIS can only do so much, but if you hold it properly, you can squeeze out another second or two with the IBIS. So that is a very, very different story.
If only you could rely on it. It's nice that you can do it, but you need to know it's going to work, I think.
Yeah.
But
so
I think
for the next one.
As well, I knew this would happen. This side towards screen has pointed out to me that Pentax SLRs have SR shake reduction. It is true. It is true. But the other thing about using a DSLR is you don't get any stabilization in the viewfinder either. So you realize just how much camera shake there is if you let it go uncorrected.
Yeah.
So that we probably don't notice too much of that magnification, but because I was using faster shutter speeds, I was using wider apertures. So you tend to get more of a character in the shot. So that's probably at a like f1.8 or f2. But the other thing is, I think I like to underexpose by somewhere around 2/3 of a stop or a stop, because I find digital cameras tend to overexpose and it sucks all the color and richness out of an image. So this one, that's just an experiment focusing on the light belt, and the sign and the frontage on the bar is actually quite soft. But it's interesting shooting with EDF, making me use faster speeds, wider apertures. Gives your images a different character.
Yes,
It
it
really
does.
does.
I can actually see the
It
character
does.
coming from the
Yeah.
lens, and
Yeah.
which is quite nice to see, I have to say.
Yeah.
As just one question from Chuck, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really big. I'm trying to shrink it down a little bit. 1 second. Okay, here you go. Was it 1.5 times focal length to freeze action pre-IBIS? I'm trying to understand what that means.
Yes, I think so. If you're shooting with a 400mm lens, you
Yep.
need a 600th of second freeze reaction. I
Oh,
think
right. Okay, I see what you mean.
that
Yeah.
might have been a useful rule of thumb, but it's going to depend on the action, I think.
Yeah.
So I was always told for soccer, a 1/640th was the ideal speed. I don't know about focal length, but for balancing some movement in the hands on the ball with sharpness in the main subject. I think if you're shooting helicopters or anything with a rotary wing,
Yep.
or anything with a propeller,
Yep.
you're going to have a different shutter speed calculation, because you're going to have to think, do you want it blurred? You're going to have shutter distortion that makes it look like a spiral. There are all sorts of different considerations for moving subjects. I think I think that 1.5 times focal length suggestion is probably a good starting point. But I think it may not be the only way to approach it.
Yeah. Well, funny that Chuck, you mentioned that, because there was a question on Facebook, not addressing to me, but it was in one of these Michael Four Third group. It was a young lady trying to capture a bird from distance. So she bought a very long focal length lens. I cannot remember which one it was now. Probably 100 to 400. Lens all the way into 400. She was complaining about the lens wasn't sharp. When I looked at the image, it wasn't actually about the sharpness. It's actually the movement, but more precisely the camera movement, not the actual movement of the subject, the bird. So that means it's too slow of a shutter speed. She's already using 1/500th of a second, but clearly that wasn't enough. But she thought the IBIS could compensate that. But then, like I said, the IBIS can only work effectively to a certain point. And the longer the focal length, the less efficient it becomes as well. So you have to bear that in mind.
That's why telephotos have optical stabilization as well, even though they're going on bodies that have IBIS, because IBIS isn't good at longer focal lengths. Lens stabilization is better. As regards safe shutter speeds, the old rule would be the reciprocal of the focal length. So if you've got a 50mm lens, 1/50th of a second should be safe. Well, is it heck? For some people it might be, not for me. I'd say 1/2 might be safe. I would say for me, a 2/50th is what I would feel confident of getting a sharp shot at. So people vary. Some people are extremely good at hand holding cameras and could shoot with a 50mm lens at a 60th, and everything would be sharp every time. Not for me. So you try it out for yourself. These rules are only guidelines. You should see what works for you, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's a lot of try and error if you're new to it, and there's no specific equation, so to speak, because everyone's holding position is different and application is different.
Think of them as starting points, not as rules, I think.
I mean, definitely, it's more like a guideline.
You've got to start somewhere, start here, but then experiment.
Absolutely. So let's go on to the next image. There we go. Ooh.
So I live in Weston-super-Mare, which is full of weird stuff. There's a shop that thought this was something you should put in a window. I say no more. Again, that's -1 EV. I'm doing this more and more now.
Okay. Is this straight out of camera JPEG or you processed it?
No, but it's not heavily processed. I only shoot RAW with this. So
I quite like the colors. It's
been through Capture One, but yes, if we're going to talk about colors, I've been surprised by the DF because I found Nikon colors can vary. But the DF is really nice. The colors from the DF really nice.
Quite rich. I quite like it.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. Here we go.
Yep. Yes. Interesting street art in Western Supermare. I imagine that's a sign for a shop.
Yeah, sorry, I have to look because my second screen's on this side. That's why I'm looking at the image.
Oh. But I think they were very careful not to paint over the old signage, which probably goes back many decades.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That was yes, that was down a side alley that I looked at and thought, shall I go down there? I don't think I should, but I did. And I'm here.
Oh, that's funny.
Again, though, nice colours.
It is nice colour.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually quite impressed with it, actually, you know, because I can't remember when was the last time I saw images from a DF, and so now you show me again. It looks quite decent. Yes.
What I have found is that if you shoot RAW, as most of us I imagine do, the colours you get are very dependent on your RAW software.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily assume the camera is giving you those colours because it all depends on a profile in Lightroom or Capture One. Yeah. I have found more variation in the profiles for Nikon cameras than others. But the Nikon DF, the RAW files on the Nikon DF seem to go through Capture One and Lightroom unscathed. They come out looking quite nice.
Okay.
That is very accurate rendering, I would say. Yeah.
So for those who don't know what a Nikon DF is, do you have it right here? So you can show people.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous retro-looking camera. It's becoming a cult classic now, right? It's a little bit like the Pen F.
There are some compromises because Nikon decided in its wisdom that lenses shouldn't have aperture rings. This camera is an awkward combination of physical controls and camera regular DSLR controls. So it's got a shutter speed dial and an ISO dial, but it's also got a mode dial, which is all a bit odd. So
which actually very similar to the ZF, in terms of
another camera where Nikon's decision not to have aperture rings means it's a little bit of a compromise in the layout and the controls.
Yeah.
But you adapt, but it's just a nice thing to look at and to use. Lovely viewfinder.
Oh,
and
I love the
weird thing is, you think a 13-year-old camera is going to feel ancient. It's going to feel like an antique with a very poor viewfinder, terrible rear screen. It's just like a modern camera. The viewfinder is really nice, and the rear screen, it's just under 1 million dots. Really nice screen. Yep. So, it's not the thing you think it is. There's the rear display. If I angle it, clear as you like, very sharp, very crisp. Playback. Where's playback? Here's one I shot earlier. Yeah. The playback image is very rich, detailed, and colourful. It feels like a modern camera. Really, it's quite strange.
Yeah. Looks good. Looks good.
Sharp too. If you keep the shutter speeds up.
I'm a big gutted. I didn't get one when I was in Japan because I saw quite a few of them, and
it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea because it's a kind of hodgepodge of old and new controls. There are too many dials. There are too many dials, really. But that's more about the 51.8 than the camera.
This must be shooting wide open, right? This one.
Oh yeah.
So
it's the focusing on the GF. It's not one of Nikon's best. It's the 39 AF used on the Nikon D610. So it's a cheaper kind of AF module. Not brilliant in low light, it has to be said, but it kind of did okay here.
Yeah.
But that for an inexpensive lens, I think that's quite a nice look.
Yeah, that looks good. And again, I'm still quite impressed with the colours.
They're nice, aren't they?
They're nice. Yeah, they're very nice. They're very punchy.
Yeah.
Very good. And the next one.
Obviously, I was feeling in the more abstract mood here, but it's got nice kind of micro contrast and textural rendering and detail. So the kind of rain on this car is really nicely defined. I wasn't sure
Yes.
it would be with that lens, but it is.
And I like how smooth the transition from highlight to shadow it as
It's
well.
quite nice, isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
Yes, very nice. I don't know where everyone can see this from the stream because obviously it's compressed. But I know where I'm
yeah.
seeing now from my screen looks very very smooth indeed.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
We
very
think
good.
these old sensors are rubbish, but they're not. They're fine. They're fine. They're just
This is
not the
another
same
thing we
resolution.
this is another thing we've been talking about, right? You know,
Yeah,
I think that we sometimes we are a little bit too focused on specs and numbers.
yeah.
But as a matter of fact, you know, sensors that came out 15 years ago are actually pretty decent. And
They've they've been making them for quite a while before then. So
yeah, so it's actually pretty decent. So if anyone just pick up anything that's for the past 10, 15 years, you should be more than happy about general image making. And of course, you know, if you are, you know, a much more demanding users like birding, you need much faster frame rates and high dynamic range if you're shooting a lot of professional landscape or high-end landscape shots, then you may need something slightly better. But overall, I think for day-to-day photography, you can't really fault it now. You know, it's just really good.
I think I noticed something else as well.
Yeah,
Shooting with this camera and lens combination, that you can go two ways in photography.
yeah,
You can go for the photograph itself, which is where I think we'd all prefer to go,
yeah,
or you can get sidetracked by the pixel peeping and the tech. What I enjoyed about the DF is it's 16 megapixels. That's it.
yeah,
I need to get over it and just crack on.
yeah,
And also that the 51.8 is not a great lens, but it has a particular look. So
yeah,
walking around with this camera, it was all about how the photographs looked, which
yeah.
is refreshing. I
Yes.
wasn't worried about the megapixels because it's what it is.
Yeah.
And I knew
Yeah.
the lens wasn't going to be the sharpest, so there's no point zooming right in. It's just
Yeah.
how the photographs look, which
Yeah.
made a nice change, to be honest.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that reminds me of a couple of years ago when I was took my Epson RD run to Spain. It was only like a 6 megapixel camera, and all the images. My entire trip, I did bring my OM5 with me, but I didn't use it as much. I just used the RD one instead. But like you said, I wasn't worried about megapixel 6. So be it. You know,
Yeah.
6 it's still enough, more than enough
It,
to print 6x4 or fill up half the screen.
it kind of takes you out of that pixel peeping spec chasing mode, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It
Yeah.
does, because you know that these things are limited, so you can start looking at the photographs, not looking at the pixels
No,
in a
no.
strange
You're
way.
you're looking for the feel. You're looking for
Yeah,
the,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
exactly. You know what you can get from the lights and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's I find it quite interesting to experience again at least. Oh, another lovely color. I just love the color for this thing. Gosh, look at that.
I wouldn't trust the auto white balance too far, but you know, if you use the right white balance for the conditions, yeah. Again, it is. I was struck by the colors. Normally,
It's-
I think that's just a lot of nonsense that different cameras have different colors, but in
Yeah.
this particular instance, I think it has got something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely looks very smooth as well. You know, when you shoot wide open, this lens does give you some kind of look, which I kind of enjoy.
I think the thing with using lenses wide open is that you worry that the detail is going to be there, but what you have to remember is the contrast between what's sharp and what's blurred is so strong
Yeah,
that what's sharp always looks really sharp.
yeah.
It's
Yep.
just, you know, the contrast is what makes things look sharp.
That's very interesting. Right. Let's see if we got another one. Oh no, that's the last one.
That
Okay.
might be it. Yeah, I didn't send you loads because
Okay. And so let's go back to our chat before I show you mine, and let's go back to our chat room here. So I think this say something about you know what we talked about. In summary, I think something that I've been advocating a lot. You know, for I know we always like to get in the latest and the greatest, mine included. I'm guilty of that. But I think at the same time, if you are really just into image making, if you're starting out, you have a limited budget. You know, have a look at some of the older cameras. I think it's worthwhile checking because, as demonstrated, you know, very clearly that they are still very, very, very good.
don't get too snobbish about lenses either, because it's about the look and whether you like it.
Yep.
It's not about checking the lens resolution charts on your favorite website. It's
Yep.
about how it looks, how it feels to use, and just whether you like it, really.
Yeah, yeah, and at the same time, even though that I say that, I'm advocate for all of these gear in terms of like photography, camera, and lenses. I'm always kind of hesitant to recommend people to use the iPhone, even though because I'm just trying to sway people away from from using the phone and using proper cameras. But there are times, and phones are convenient, and phones can be very, very handy to have because it's always next to you, it's always ready.
I think with a phone, it's very difficult to take photographs seriously. If you use a phone like you use a proper camera, you'll
Yep.
get proper photographs.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to treat a phone as a proper camera. You
Yeah.
tend to treat it as a kind of throwaway capture device.
Yeah.
And the end result is that that's what your photographs look like.
Yeah.
But if you give it the same, it's quite difficult to give it the same care and attention you give a proper camera. But it repays.
I think yeah.
you've probably got something to show us as well, haven't you, Jimmy?
I do. But just to say something first, I think the reason why you said that is because smartphones, smart devices, in general speaking, the app that comes with the camera, like the native camera app, for instance, for whether it's going to be Android or Apple, is very, very limited in terms of control. You can't control shutter speed. You can't control aperture. Yes, you got fake bokeh things, but these are artificial stuff. And because the phone, actually, a lot of the cases are actually fixed aperture. They come with a 1.7 lens. It is 1.7, and that's you can't close it down. You can't do anything about it. Anything that you can see in terms of depth of field is fixed. And when it comes to cinematic mode, portrait mode, whatever, those are artificially imposed on it afterward. It's an in-camera processing that you're going to gain that shallow depth of field look.
It's the mindset as well. I think it gets you. It's all high speed throughput. You've got capture, share, comment.
Yeah.
It's too quick. It's too quick to look at things properly.
Yeah, absolutely. But having said that, like there are people who are very successful with smartphone photography or filmmaking. You've seen a lot of some pros use iPhone for filmmaking. We all heard about 28 days. Oh, sorry, not 28 years later. It was filmed exclusively with the iPhones. The Formula One movie, from starring Brad Pitt, certain portions of it using also not iPhone, but the iPhone setup, because they have to custom rig the thing in the Formula One car, so they can't just mount a phone there, so they just have to take the guts out and put it in a special housing. But it's still essentially it's the same unit that you see on the iPhone. So technically it's capable to a degree, obviously, so you can't compare with a proper rig.
It just doesn't encourage you to shoot the same way.
Yes.
Have you watched the original 28 Days Later, by the way?
Yes, I did. It's a camcorder job, wasn't it?
That is one scary film.
I like that movie. I really like that movie.
I do.
Yeah.
First movie where, the zombies aren't just they're fast.
Because I'm into filmmaking, and I think these films is quite inspirational. It shows you that with proper techniques and proper storytelling's ability, and just simple use of light, can achieve a lot. You can make something with relatively low budget. Obviously, bigger budget would make it more grand, make it more cinematic, can look a lot better, but it doesn't really stop you from creating. And that actually applies not just for filmmaking, in terms of photography as well. If you learn how to read the light and use your composition wisely and execute in the correct timing, you can get a lot out. You don't necessarily need to go to spend a lot of money on gear, or to travel to some exotic location to get a great shot. You can just simply wander down the street and get some really nice stuff, and providing you know how to work it creatively.
It's quite difficult, though, if you're trying to convince somebody who's used to a smartphone to upgrade to a camera, because really what you want to tell them is if you want to take proper photographs, it's not really about the camera. You've got to stand around for longer, look harder, wait, be more careful and thoughtful, which are all rather unwelcome messages for phone users.
And Chuck L actually said that I wonder if Apple somehow sponsored them to shoot on iPhones.
I'm sure Apple helped with the production. I'm quite sure.
I'm definitely. To be quite frank, Samsung could have done it. But I think in terms of the smartphone landscape wise, even though Android by market share in terms of the OS point of view, they are the biggest by far. But independently, if you look at Samsung on its own, if you look at like whoever on its own, none of them can match the scale of iPhone and Apple, and they have bigger budgets to do things, and support wise, it's the same thing as well. Yes,
Apple's well connected with the media industry too. It's Apple TV, it's Apple Originals. It's a big player in the media landscape as well. So, but like Sony, you might say, should have got Sony to sponsor it. But I'm sure Apple provided lots of help. But I think it doesn't undermine the main point is that it's what you do matters more than what you do it with.
Yes. And speaking of that, obviously, the reason I mentioned about smartphone is, like I mentioned from the beginning of the chat, if those of you missed the beginning, is that I recently got the Leica Lux app, and through purchasing the Leica grip, which is I'm being truthful here, is an oversized, overkill, an overpriced product, because you can get any third-party grip from any manufacturers on Amazon for like a fraction of the price. You can do the same thing. Basically, it's a Bluetooth control trigger, and that's basically it.
It's fantastically expensive. Yeah, but also simple. You're paying for clarity and simplicity, which sounds wrong, but you kind of are.
No, I think I have to extend a little bit about that as well. And what you're paying for any Leica product, not just this grip, is the unique user experience. And I think they actually delivered that with this combination here. And let's look at the app first. I'm going to show you some images that I took with that app.
I almost bought the subscription to that, Jimmy. Not the grip, but the subscription. Yeah, or very much, very nearly.
The app itself is pretty intuitive, very simple. Although I, after a couple of days of intensive use, and I found that there's some flaws with the app, but which I will come to that maybe later, and also in my review. But the app itself does give you the Leica experience. It's simplified. Everything's simple, easy to understand, very straightforward. No clunkiness, no submenu here and there. It's just straightforward icons and everything. But it does work very well with the grip, because the grip, apart from the shutter trigger button, it also have a front dial which is clickable and two function button, all ties into the app, so you can set a lot of quick shortcuts basically to certain things. If you want to quickly change to mono, you can click a button and it changes to mono. And if you click it to a specific film look, which it does have in the app, and you can set that to a custom function. And the dial works with all kinds of stuff, with aperture control, obviously fake aperture control, and all sorts of selections and things like that. So instead of like going to the screen, you can simply use one hand and scroll the down, push some button, and you're there. So it's actually quite intuitive. And for those who always praise Leica products user interface on the digital cameras, it kind of get the same vibe in the app. It's very simple. The amount of time we see different camera apps on iOS or Android OS is that they're overcomplicating everything.
there is a free tier for anyone who's interested. You don't get all the features, but you can get a sense of what it's like to use. Yeah,
definitely. But in terms of the actual quality of the app, I think that is interesting, because it obviously using the Apple sensors and the lens, you can't change that. But how it processes it is different. Leica does take the raw file and process it within the app itself and give you a slightly different look. Because of that, they have the ability to use some simulations and what they call it, to emulate, the old some of the famous Leica lenses in the past. So you can choose a more vintage Leica lens look. You can change to a more modern lens look. There is a little bit of a selections that you can choose from, and on top of that, they also give you a huge amount of different color profile or lens or filters, if you want to call it that, to give you a different look and colors. So that is quite interesting. In some way, I think they do a much better job in some of the film simulations that I've seen so far, and at least on a phone, because I think Leica did a good job in terms of fine-tuning some of the look and feel from a phone file to a more of the traditional Leica camera look.
I think if you look at the images that Leica uses on its website, in its marketing, in its blogs, they have a particular style that the app replicates very well. It's kind of high contrast, dense colors, no overexposure. Yeah, because that's not the Leica look, overexposure. So you do get that look that you're used to seeing from Leica cameras.
Yes, you do. And what I'm actually the most surprised and most impressed with is the fake bokeh. I mean, I hate using the word fake bokeh. But they actually
is quite good.
Yeah, they actually do a much better job compared to the native camera app from iOS. Yeah. I can't say the same thing of Samsung or all the other phones, because I can't, I haven't tried all the other phones. And but from at least comparing to the iPhone native portrait mode, the fake bokeh mode, it's fantastic. I'm just trying to show you one image, and this is actually shot with RAW. I tried to use the iPhone RAW within the app.
That is such a Leica look. Those are Leica colors, quite saturated, aren't they? But
very saturated, almost like a
density and depth.
Yes, and then and this is the fake bokeh I'm talking about. It looks very convincing, very convincing. Yeah. I was using the 35mm Summilux simulation. Shot wide open at 1.4. It really does give you that look. I shot with the 35 Summilux a lot in the past, so I know what it looks like. So it does give you that look.
I think what's interesting as well is that hardware-wise, the iPhone can't change the lens aperture. No. So I think what Leica is doing is they are adjusting the digital blur to mimic what those apertures would have looked like if they existed. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
So if you shoot at f11, it won't blur the background as much. So it has the appearance of aperture control, which is very effective.
It is very impressive, and also if you choose a vintage Leica lens, they will even blur it out for you as well, so it doesn't look as sharp. So it actually gives you less sharp look, and also add a bit of grain to it as well. So I actually find it quite interesting to look at. This one I think I used I can't remember that. I think it's 135 Tele, and one of the older Leica lens, and you can see the lower contrast there, so it does give you that trying to mimic what the lens would give you, because the older Leica lenses they're all low contrast lenses, so you can kind of see that in this image too.
I can see they were ready for you, Jimmy.
You know what?
Do you have a permit, sir?
You know what? I photographed this when I was standing around, because they closed off the entire Westminster because of a bomb, because allegedly a bomb threat in Downing Street just 2 days ago, and it was 2 seconds. I was there photographing in the morning with my client, and I was just about to head home, and suddenly they were like, a dozen police car came and closed off the entire area and pushed out everybody on the street. And then I just went ahead to ask them what happened, and they said, there's a bomb scare. So there was nothing happened. After about 20 minutes, they opened the road again, and but it was very quick.
I think what interests me about phones is that you can do this on a phone. Nobody bats an eyelid because everyone's got a phone.
Yes.
Try this with a camera, and somebody will come over to have a word with you to see what you're doing.
I think that is quite true, and you can see when I was standing there taking photos, there were a ton of other tourists doing the same thing. So they're not going to suspect you, or doing anything silly. But if you pull out a big white gun, up there, like a big long lens there, they just like, what are you doing there? You know, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it will be a very, very different story altogether.
It's a curious thing, you know. I was looking through my back catalogue of street photography. I don't do it a lot, but I do some.
Yeah.
And I've realised how many of my images are of people on phones.
Yeah.
I don't deliberately shoot that, but I suppose it's like instinctive with me. It's an interesting picture. But people now, they walk around London. They're not looking at London. They're looking at what the phone is showing them. Probably looking at through the camera, but at the thing they're seeing. So people look at their phones instead of looking at the world. It's all very peculiar.
Yeah, it is. But going back to the image, I think it does a very good job again. Once these separations again, and it does have that shallow depth of field. You know, not ultra shallow because I think this lens is f3.4, I think, or f4.5. So it is not 2.8 kind of look. It's definitely closed down a little bit. So it does address that kind of look. So it does a really good job once again. And again, if you look at the edges are fairly accurate, and unless you go really close up and see that there are still some flaw, but overall I'm still quite impressed with it. I got one comment here straight away. Is that app iPhone only? I believe
I think it might be. I think it might be, yeah.
Because the funny thing is, and actually no, I don't think so. You can check you can get it on Google Play Store, but the grip itself, the grip is iPhone only, because you can only activate it through the app when you attach it to the phone, which is a weird thing.
Yeah, the app is iOS only.
iOS only, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you answer that.
I think so.
Which is, I think, is unfortunate, because I think that it would be quite cool for them to make an iOS version. I mean, the Android version.
But it's so tied into the hardware, it would be difficult to port it across.
Because I think that the lens simulations are obviously individually tailored for whatever iPhone has. So it's very specific. And Android being Android, if you look across the board, all of them have different lenses, different focal length, different aperture, and it's just too wide. I think from a developer's point of view, it's going to be very tricky to make it unified versions of it that will work across the board. And iPhone, hasn't really changed for the last 10 years, so they always about the same three lenses. Okay, let's see if there's another image here. That's the grip. That's the grip I want to show you guys, and so that's what I paid bloody thing for. But it does allow me to get the lifetime access to it. So that's why I
sell the grip, keep the app.
Yep. And that's an image I took this morning as well. This, on the other hand, I think it's a little bit iPhone-ish. I do see that. And, the smart HDR cloud formation, you can kind of see that.
Kind of.
Yes. And so it's a little bit too much, I think, if you could dial it down a little bit, and it'll look a little bit more convincing. But this is definitely a bit too HDR for me. But it's still, again, just looking at the tonalities and the contrast, it's still pretty impressive. It's really good. And this is a very, very same tele lens I was using earlier for the police. And this time just gunning across the person there on the other side of the bridge, and once again the separation between the subject compared to the foreground and the background is precise. It's really, really good.
It's interesting that there are lots of little visual cues. That you recognize in photographs. So if the background is just very slightly blurred, it looks like it's taken with a bigger camera.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to jump out at you. It's a very subtle thing, but you do notice it.
Yeah. And if you look close inspection, the bollard at the front actually slightly out of focus too. So there was a little bit of a focusing going on there. So they did a great job when it comes to this sort of emulation. And again, this is a very generic shot.
More HDR-y.
Again, I think they've done too much of the HDR, and it's something that could be improved in the future. And when it comes to this sort of light, but I think this is a lot to do with the iPhone capturing.
I think it is. Yeah, you can't switch it off. You can't switch it off, unfortunately.
Because you said that before, right? You can't switch it off nowadays. So that's the problem with iPhone. You
used to be able to shoot HDR and non-HDR alongside each other, but now it's just HDR. And it's a little difficult to bring things back from that because it tends to flatten out the tones
Yeah.
in a way where it's quite hard to bring them back. But
Yeah.
it's what it is.
It is what it is. But I've tried some other shots as well in other kind of high contrast black and white, like on the street, and they all work very, very well. I think the only time when you really see it a little bit artificial is when you see the sky, because that's what happened with HDR. All the clouds seems to be overly formed.
And it's more prominent, I think, in black and white, because in black and white you're used to seeing contrast.
Yes.
And the HDR tends to take it out a bit. But I don't think you'd notice quite so much in color. I do like the app. If anyone's got an iPhone, get it. You don't pay until you subscribe, but there's enough to play around with without subscribing to get a feel for what it's like.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, and it's you know, I wouldn't say it's expensive, you know, because there are other camera apps. No, there are other cameras that are more expensive on the App Store. That's for sure. So I would say it's above average price, so it's not over expensive, because there are other that will charge you like over £10 a month. This is like £6.99 a month, I think £7 a month for the subscription, or you can pay yearly to save 2 months. Basically, you can get it for £70 a year. You can do annually. That was the reason why I bought this kit, because I got lifetime access. So if I keep the app, that means I can use it forever without paying a single penny again. So in long term, it works out for me. And judging by the fact that Leica's being Leica, they're constantly developing it, because I know that this app's been around for about 3 years now, and has already received numerous updates. Even the grip, it's funny enough, when I received the grip, the version, firmware version was running 1.1. When I connected to the app, it upgraded to the latest version, and guess what the version number is? 3.2. So that's how many firmware they've done over the years. So, but it's in some way, you know, this is something that we always see from Leica, right? They're trying to keep their customer happy, and they will constantly, whatever you pay them, they do use it back for the product that they produce. And so is their cameras and lenses, and you often see that that's why they receive a lot of great reviews from in terms of servicings, just because you're paying for it, really, eventually. And I'm not trying to promote Leica, because I mean, I just think that a lot of their products
are the cheapest bit of Leica kit you can get.
It's a pretty decent one too, you know, think about it.
Yeah, I think so,
without paying a fortune, because most of them are pretty unaffordable, to say the least.
Well, for sure.
And even though that I've been a Leica user myself for many, many years, but I started with Film Day. So back in the days, film cameras from Leica were expensive, but not like what it is now. It is now definitely just way too much now. When I first started film photography, you can get a Leica M6 for like about £800, £900. Nowadays, you know, calculated inflation and everything like that, is definitely can't get it at all. You know, I think the latest MP would cost you about $4,000 or something like that, which is ridiculous for a film camera.
Not new.
No.
Leica MP. New.
Yeah, the film MP. Yeah.
That's not going to be. It's going to be more, isn't it?
I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
I'm not even sure if they still sell the M7. I think they're only selling MP now, I think. And
just while we're on the subject, for anyone who's interested, anyone use Snapseed?
Oh, I know Snapseed, yes.
Had you noticed that Snapseed now has a camera? I don't think you can do any fancy presets and shoot live with the presets, but you can... Oops. You can try different film types. Let me get this in the right place.
Okay,
just cycle
all right.
through trying different film types.
Oh, so doing that too, right? So everyone's doing it.
So yeah.
Oh wow, there you go.
So yeah, have a look at Snapseed camera. I'm not sure it's all that brilliant, but you know, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Leica app is a way to get a feel for the Leica look without spending Leica money. I think it's quite cool.
And in some way, the experience, because they're I think you do get that, and that's for my current experience for 3 days of use.
I think as well, if you're using the wide aperture simulation, having the blur live in front of you changes the way you see photographs and the way you compose them. Yeah. Because when the background's out of focus, it's a very different composition and a very different photograph to if you just took a photograph with your phone and then tried to edit it later. You do shoot differently when you can see the end result right there in front of you. So I think it's quite cool.
It is. So so that's my little demo for the actual app itself, and I think it's interesting. And for those. I mean, I don't get any commissions affiliated with them. So if you want to check out, it's on App Store. Obviously, just go and have a look at it. Like I said, it's not free, unfortunately, and I wish it would be a little bit cheaper too.
It's free. It's free with certain features disabled. It's a free app with a subscription that unlocks the full set.
Yes. I think if you go for the free version, I think it will get you. You can use the app with your native. You will lose the lens simulation. That's it. You will lose the lens simulation.
Yeah,
and you will only get 2 or 3 presets, color presets, but not the full set.
I think you might get a couple of lenses, but you don't get the full list. I'd have to check. But it's free. Try it. See what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So. That's our photo demos, one from the DF, one from the iPhone, and but I think the reason that I want to align these two together in today's chat is that just to highlight something that is more fundamental to all photographers is that we are interested in image making, image taking, and I think that if you are genuinely interested in this craft, there is no limit on what gear you use as long as you can capture some images, whether it's going to be from a phone, from a camera, and anything in between, and as long as you can freeze a frame in front of you, and that's photography. And I always like that kind of narrative, because I know there are some gear nerds. I mean, always say, to capture the best image, you have to definitely get a proper camera. I mean, I'm all for that. But there are also times, and many times in my case, being a parent now, and is that you just simply don't have the camera always with you or always switched on with you. And the only way to capture something in front of you, do see something interesting, is simply pull out the phone and take something. And in my eyes, there's no difference between using a phone or a camera, or for that matter, if I use it for my own work or for my client's work. I just pick the right tool for the right job for the right moment if I have whatever I have in front of me. So there's no difference there. So I think we should be stop being snobbish about the whole thing about between phone and cameras. I like both. Anything that can capture images or video, I'm all up for it.
Both of them can make you a bad photographer by distracting you with the wrong things. A phone will distract you with instant sharing, instant gratification. You don't stop and think for long enough. That's what phones do. Cameras can distract you too much with the technicalities. You become obsessed with megapixels, with AF performance, with video codecs. Both of those, cameras and phones, can take you away from photography. They do it in different ways, but they're both as bad as each other. And they both need to be used in the right way if we want to get back to what we got into photography for, which is the photographs. They can both lead you in the wrong direction. Making a photograph,
absolutely, and that's what we really want to emphasize. For this community, we always, about photography, making images of. As much as we like to talk about gear, but I think this is the essence of it. And just give you another quite cool example that I witnessed the other day when I was photographing my clients. There were 2 young ladies, I think, in the early 20s. It's really, really cool. True story, right? So they were standing in front of the telephone booth, the red phone booth that's very popular in this country. And if you haven't been, and so they like to stand in front of it and take photos. So it was backlit. I really remember it's backlit. So the lady was standing in front of the booth. The sun was behind her. So it's a very tricky situation to take photos. So what she did, she took out her phone, take a shot. Took the point and shoot. Yeah, she got a point and shoot as well. A point and shoot camera. I can't remember what it was. It does look like a Canon to me. So like a tiny little point and shoot. Snap another shot. Put the flash on. And then she said, didn't look right. And then she pulled out a mirrorless camera out. So she used 3 cameras to take the same shot. And then to see which one turned out better. And but I remember one thing she really clearly said when she was photographing her friend, and she said, "I couldn't see the flash in a photograph." And then I think this shows me, people want to get a look, but didn't quite understand the fundamentals of flash photography or the general exposure. Knowledge, the lack of, basically. And for flash to work, there are obviously multiple reasons: the output, the distance between the subject, and everything, your actual exposure settings and all kinds of stuff. And it's not so much, a lot of the time, what's the shutter speed is, depending on what kind of camera you use. And most point and shoot camera will use a leaf shutter, so it's not going to be a mechanical shutter, so it will basically sync in any kind of speed. And so for that, if you want it to be very effective, you do need a very fast aperture. So to compensate for the lack of power from the flash. So obviously none of these will register with her. And I tried to explain to her when I spoke to her. I did come up to her and speak to her. You can actually make it work. You either have to step a bit closer, or you simply don't use it because it won't work. In this sort of situation, this lighting condition, it was too much for the camera to handle. And she ended up, going really close, and you finally get a little bit of fill light effects. And then so it's like, yeah, that's what you're gonna have to do, unless you're in a very dim environment when the flash power is stronger than the ambient light. That's when you can see.
But there's some complicated maths around flash, and it's just a bit too much to take on, I think, for a beginner. Or just say carry around a reflector instead. Maybe that would do.
I don't see people using reflector these days.
No,
which is quite sad.
I don't know why not.
Yeah. It's a really simple tool.
And you never have to worry about your lighting ratios because the reflector is always going to be a couple of stops darker. Than the light. So, hey, maybe that's a new thing to promote. But it is quite. There is a lot of technicality around taking photographs that I can see why that would put beginners off. But I never like point and shoot cameras with pop-up flash for that reason, because it looks like it should be foolproof, but of course it isn't. The flash is weak, depends on the circumstances. You have to know how flash modes work. It's much more complicated than it ought to be. People get in a mess.
It is. I mean, and I know people, most young people especially, they get inspired from this harsh flash look, which is kind of in trend at the moment, and they're all trying to mimic that. But to achieve that, it's not that simple.
So close. And you can't do it in bright sunlight. You have to be in the right environment. There's a bit more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, well, to combat a bright sunny day, you really need like a 900-volt strobe to be able to overpower the sun, which is very, very hard to do.
Very difficult. Yeah.
And I don't know how many of you shoot flash in bright sunny day, and it's definitely some special equipment needed.
It takes a lot of power, power, and quite a lot of mental maths too.
Yes, but luckily, if you do interested in it, and it's not impossible these days. Most modern system will have high speed sync, which allow the flash will sync up with the shutter, which beyond the traditional mechanical shutter limit.
But it's not a point and shoot technique.
No,
it's a technique that requires some setup.
Yes. Absolutely, but it's fun. If you're interested in it, maybe we could do a session for that. And then, but it's definitely something to play around with if you haven't done it before.
Flash versus continuous. Ooh. That would be an interesting debate.
Continuous can never ever beat, strobe light. I think in terms of power, raw power output.
You haven't got the power. I mean, it's maybe something we could explore in a chat. The other problem with continuous light is if you have enough power to be useful, your subjects can't see because they're just blinded. It's too strong.
Imagine that
to look at constantly.
If you want to overpower the sun, that means your light had to be more powerful than the sun. So imagine that thing right in front of the subject's face. He or she's probably get sunburned from the light you got.
It is hard to have a light like that in your face without squinting.
Yeah. So flash, I think, is still much better. It
is in that sense. It's more complicated.
Yeah.
But it's better. So yeah,
Yes.
interesting. We could have a conversation about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as
Yeah,
we got here, we need a new online course. Now you can be a bad photographer too.
that'd be quite good fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe we should do it.
How
We can do an episode about we've become the bad photographers or something.
how to be a bad photographer.
Yeah.
All the things that people have done and things that happen to
Oh, that
make
would be
people bad
that would be
photographers.
fun.
That'd be
That would be
mean.
fun.
Do you think it'd be mean? Do you mean?
I don't
It's
know.
like when
All of
see
you guys will start unsubscribing us once we've done that.
you go to a stadium and
Yeah.
you can see people in the stands with flashes going off, and you think,
Yeah.
how's that going to work?
Got another one here, Vinlip here. And saw someone
Yeah.
in San Francisco using a built-in flash on a clunky camera at night to shoot their subject about 25 feet away.
How is that going to look?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing about what we just talked about. People just don't understand it. You think there's a flash there. It may look bright, but when you're standing 25 feet away, it means nothing.
It's the inverse square law, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you might get something. You might get
yeah.
the retina from the eyes reflection. You see these red
Yeah,
dots,
you get nice
from
red eyes.
distance.
Yeah.
That's probably all you see. But other than that, you're not going to see any faces or anything like that.
It is quite interesting balancing flash with ambient light, but it's
Yeah.
not straightforward. You need to know what's going on. It's quite a technical thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so that is today's discussion, and just to wrap things up now, we're approaching our normal 2-hour slot. For those who missed our beginning of the chat, we talked about Nikon versus Viltrox. You've probably seen the thumbnails already. Basically, Nikon lost the case to Viltrox, but we discussed it just now, and this may not be the end of it. Nikon
Might be chapter 1.
Yeah, may only
Episode
be a chapter
1.
We may come into a very long series of a battle between the two.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think as a consumer, we shouldn't worry too much. I'm pretty sure something will be resolved, whether through licensing program or even if it does come to the end between the two relationship between the two companies. Those who already purchased should be protected. I think this consumer rights. So otherwise, they're going to end up with class actions and all sorts of stuff. So I think they will be protected. It only means that from whatever point onward, the Viltrox may not be able to produce Nikon Z camera lenses. For instance, that will be the kind of the ultimate result if it comes down to that. But I think that won't be it. It's more like just going to be a compromise, licensing, whatever. Something's going to happen between the two. At the same time, another big news broke out. Obviously, Sony trying to buy Tamron, and Tamron so happened to also make Nikon lenses. So that relationship can also trigger something else altogether, because it could be a chain reaction. What if Sony stopped Tamron altogether making Nikon Z lenses? That means Nikon would immediately lose a third-party lens maker, which they currently licensed, and Sigma is no longer making new Z-mount lenses, or at least not interested in making Z-mount lenses.
Doesn't look like it, no.
Yeah, and that means the only people really making Nikon Z-mount lenses are actually Chinese players, whether it's Viltrox or 7 Artisan, TT Artisan. So that's going to back down to square one. So what's Nikon's going to do if that does happen? So it's really interesting situation now between the triangle of companies here, and so we don't know. Nothing is set in stone yet. It's not confirmed that Sony is definitely buying a Tamron, or Tamron agreed to sell it to Sony. It's nothing happened yet, so we don't know. Everything is up in the air at the moment, but it all relating to each other. But in a more overall context, is I think third-party lens making it's come to a point that come to a crossroad, I would say, whether this case between Viltrox and Nikon will set a precedent for them to freely make anything or nothing at all. So that is the point we're reaching now, depending on the outcome between Viltrox and Nikon. It's interesting space to look at, but I'm all up for third-party lenses simply because it offers values, it offers alternatives and options to us all photographers, and we don't always have to stick with the the big names, and not that they're bad, they're actually exceptionally good in most cases, but it's just that we like choices. We always like choices, and we always like something different. And also it opens up a brand new tier of photographer, especially for those who's just starting out without any major budget. So that's what I want to say in today's chat. And let me know in the comment section below what you want to say about this, and also commenting on Rod just disappeared, and also commenting on Rod's images from his DF cameras. And I do think that camera has a very, very unique look, so I'm actually find it very, very interesting to look at. Personally, I think is a hang on,
am I back?
Rod?
Yeah,
he's back. Rod is back.
I switched tab groups. No, I can't do that.
Well, I was just saying to everybody just to comment on your DF images, and then I think they have special colors, and I really intrigued by the colors that coming up from your camera. Definitely very punchy, and I do like the lens as well. Even though it may not be the sharpest, but that character, that, like you said, when you shoot wide open 1.8, it is quite unique. Now you make my hands itchy now, and I have to start looking for a DF and a lens that to match. And
you could, but I think you would find the DF a little bit frustrating because of this awkward combination of old and new controls. They didn't quite get on top of that. But if you like DSLRs, it's a nice one. It's a nice one.
No, you're tempting me now. I'm still indecisive between the DA50 or the Z8, and but logically speaking, Z8 would be more appropriate for me, because I already got a whole bunch of Z-mount lenses that I can use straight away instead of having to find a bunch of DSLR lenses for Nikon.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to know which way to jump, really. I think the Z8 would be a far more logical professional choice. The DA50 would just be a bit of amusement, because the world has moved on, and not everyone can get along with the DSLR anymore. I can, but a lot of people can't. So you've got to allow for that. Get the Z8. Yeah.
We shall see. Right.
I think though that older lenses are interesting.
Yeah.
And anything that can take you out of the technology race is likely to bring you back to photography.
Yeah.
Which is why things like the TF are so effective. It'd be like people still shoot with the Fujifilm X-T1.
Yeah.
And I think that works because it takes you out of the arms race, doesn't it?
Yes.
And drops you,
it does.
and it's just a camera. And that's how you should treat it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still see loads of people on the street carrying XT3, XT30, the older cameras, and they're perfectly fine, and in fact, I think I quite like using them as well. One last comment that I see is interesting, and for you actually, Rod, we need a pre-recorded episode drop for next week, Jen, great episode, but also for your podcast. Need longer episodes.
Well, I would, but it's hard enough listening to myself speak for 10 minutes when I edit it. I can't imagine what it's like for anyone else, but I'll give that some thought.
Maybe you can do like a member exclusive episodes when
I could put in some songs, couldn't I? Maybe break it up a bit. No, but I'll give it some thought. I think the thing is that I tend to write scripts like I write articles for magazines, which are of a fixed length. If you're going to do a half-hour podcast, you're talking about a very long script. So maybe you cover the same things slower, or you cover more things. I don't know yet. Don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, final comment before we say goodbye.
Yeah.
Competition drive improvement. We need third-party sellers. Big name companies get lenient, sort of less creative in making products.
Yeah. That's true. Just remember though, we don't need competition for this channel. Just don't start thinking that.
It's us and us only.
It should be a monopoly.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and remember just to leave some comment down below. There will be no podcast next week, so I will see you back in 2 weeks' time, basically. Yes. And hopefully by then there will be no more shocking news to talk about, and we can go back to our gear nerding times, and also maybe some photography talk as well. I may be able to share you guys some images that I take on my cruise ship, and hopefully I'll capture the solar eclipse as well. And then I'm just finger crossing. I'm not entirely sure whether it's actually feasible if I'm on the ship. It just depends. Yeah, it depends on how the movement, right? He's sitting with such a long lens, and
But if you're on a cruise, it's going to be during the day, so you probably will be at sea. So you might have movement to the ship.
So I have to be fairly careful. So I just have to see what happened then.
Yeah. Or just fake it in Lightroom. Take a picture of the sun and put a black circle around it.
Or just use the iPhone.
Yeah.
It might burn the sensor with that intensity.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much, and we're gonna tune in next time. And so until then, you guys enjoy photography, enjoy the weather, go out and shoot something, and maybe we should start featuring some of your photos if you guys are into that. And we can talk about it next time, and we can see your photograph as well. As we show enough of ours now. Maybe we should see yours as well. If you're interested, leave some comment down below, and if I see enough response, we may be able to get you a contact email. Just drop all those stuff to us, and we will be able to showcase your images, and maybe you can even chime in to talk about your photographs as well. That would be quite cool. So anyway, until next time, I will see you all very, very soon. Bye for now. Cheers.
Have a good holiday, Jimmy.
Oh, thank you. See you. Bye.
Bye.